Hey there, friends. How's it going? Richard here coming at you. And in this video, I want to talk about with more and more people looking at particularly incentives for electric vehicles and maybe considering the switch from a gas-powered vehicle to an electric vehicle, whether or not you should look for or consider a standard range vehicle versus an extended range vehicle. When I think about all the questions that I get asked about driving a Tesla, one of the biggest concerns that people have is this thing like how many miles per charge, and that's often fed by like stories they may have come across online, like somebody getting stranded. I drove to Mexico or across the country in an electric vehicle. Was a horrible experience. And I can't speak for what I'll say the first generation of electric vehicles, maybe your early on or early build Nissan Leafs, Toyota Priuses. I haven't driven those. I don't know what those things are like, but when I consider what I know about and have experienced with the new generation electric vehicles, and we're talking about Tesla, the Mustang Mach-E, ID4, Rivian, like these newer vehicles, I think you got to look at them and separate them out about what they can and cannot do. So before getting to and answering the question of whether or not you should get a vehicle equipped with a standard range battery or extended range battery, long range, I want to talk about like the question and how I think that question is. It's not the right question to be asking. And this isn't going to be a Tesla video, although I think Tesla has a place in the conversation. This is not about buy Tesla over something else or something else over Tesla. We're talking about the battery size for a vehicle that you may be considering. So whenever people ask me about, hey, Rich, like how many miles do you get per charge? That's categorically the one, if not the first question, one of the first questions that people ask me about driving a Tesla. And I'll usually say, hey, there's an EPA estimated range of whatever it was. My Tesla Model 3 was EPA estimated 310 miles. The Model Y that I have is 330 miles, but that's not really the right question, and you're probably not getting that charge. That's like real world conditions in a vacuum. Just like any other vehicle, gas powered or electric, like the amount of miles you get per tank of gas or per battery charge depends on the amount of passengers you have, the weight, the cargo, temperature, tire pressure, elevation, wind. All those things impact it. You just, I think, experience and feel it a lot more in an electric vehicle than you do a gas vehicle. Why? Because a gas-powered vehicle, you've got gas stations every half a mile or so, right? It's so ubiquitous that you never have to consider it. Like, you know there's going to be a gas station around the corner. Whereas an electric vehicle charger, you just got to be a little more mindful about that. Notwithstanding, I don't think the right question is, should I get the extended range or the standard range battery because of just the pure miles? And I think a lot of people jump to that conclusion. I want as many miles per charge as possible. To really answer that question, you've got to ask yourself, like, how do I drive? When I think about and ask the people in my own life, my circle of family and friends, how many people have taken like a significant road trip in the last year or 2 years? I'm probably the only one. I don't think any of my family or friends have driven, from New York to DC is 500 something miles. From New York to Georgia was, I think, 900 miles each way. From New York to Denver and back, that was like a 3,000 mile road trip back and forth. No one's driving that. So I ask you, like, if you're watching this video and you're considering the switch to an EV, don't just default to long range. You got to really start looking at your driving habits. I forgot where I came across this number, but most people drive, it's like home to work, home to school, home to shopping, home to family. And on any given day, you're probably driving no more than 30 to 50 miles. 30 to 50 miles. And so the reason I bring that up is because most of these new generation vehicles, Tesla, Ford Mustang Mach-E, VW ID4, Rivian, you name it, they all can easily do 100 to 150 miles on a charge. So like the usability of the vehicle, any one of these cars you get, you can probably accomplish whatever your driving is on a normal basis. Like for whatever it is, maybe it's an outcome bias that we look at, the things that the negative outcome that much more negatively and the positive outcome that much more positively. So whenever people ask about the range per how many miles you get per charge, like they think about it as if they're just doing road trips. But really, how many road trips have you taken in the last year or two? Now, some of you may be taking more road trips than others, and others, like my parents, would never need anything more than like 10 miles on a single charge because they just don't drive anywhere distant. So really, you got to get, I think, especially in the conversation of standard range versus long range, you got to get out of the how many miles per charge because it's really unnecessary, or that's a misframed question there. Now, what does matter? Assume I'm right about your driving habits, that you're only driving 30 to 50 miles a day. So any one of these vehicles could do the trick for you. But then the other challenge is, and I think the really, really important one from my experience is, where are you charging this sucker? That becomes a challenge. If you own a house, or in the alternative, even if you don't own a house, if you have access to an outlet, right? So whether that's at home, maybe if where you do, even if you don't own the house, maybe you rent somewhere, you have access to an outlet, or at work, you have access to an outlet, and increasingly more and more workplaces or parking lots are including electric charging units. If you have access to the ability to charge, an electric vehicle is a no-brainer. No-brainer. The amount of time that your car is sitting somewhere, rather if you're at home and you have access to an outlet, you charge it up, you never have to think about that again, right? Again, put aside road tripping. Like, road tripping doesn't govern this. In your day-to-day, if you have access to an outlet, you just plug into, from all these vehicles, you can plug into a 110, and then in 8 hours, when you wake up in the morning or you're ready to go, like, the vehicle will be ready to go. Same thing with work. Like, if you can leave your car to work, you get in 8:30, you leave at 5, whatever the case is. If there's a place to charge at work, the entire time you're at work, like, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about it. So I think that where you have the capacity to charge should really be the primary concern. Because if you were like me, when I first got the 2020 Model 3, we were living in an apartment. It was on-street parking. Like, I didn't have any garage. I didn't have a driveway. I had to park on the street, and there's nowhere to plug in. I had to rely on public chargers. That's where it becomes a little challenging, because then you really have to think about and plan out, how are you going to incorporate charging into your life? Now, for me, and I drive, and I drove at the time a lot, I would usually charge up once, maybe 2 times a week, depending on how many miles I did, right? And sometimes I would have to drive 50 miles, 60 miles in a day, depending on, going from home in Queens out to like Suffolk County and then back, like whatever the round trip is there, 40 miles or something like that. So I would usually incorporate charging there. Other times I would just say, okay, I don't have to charge but once for the week, I would incorporate lunch to that. But depending on where a charger is in relation to where you're going to be, that is really challenging. Fortunately for me, when I got that Tesla Model 3, there was a charger. It's a supercharging station about 10 minutes away from where I work. So it was really convenient. I would do that, again, go to lunch once a week or something like that. Or in the alternative, if I did have a longer drive out to, let's say, Long Island, where there's a few more superchargers, I would incorporate supercharging on that drive. If you're someone who lives pretty distant from the nearest available charger, like, that's what really should go. Because then you gotta plan out how much driving can you do during the week before you actually have to charge. So I think that's what really should be the primary concern and the question you need to answer for yourself before thinking about, one, getting an electric vehicle. And if you do make a decision to get an electric vehicle, should you go with like a standard range battery or an extended range battery? I don't think just defaulting to an extended range battery is the answer. And I'm saying this is somebody who, my Model 3 was a long range battery, and then my current Model Y that I just picked up is a long range battery. But the reason I did that is because we drive a lot. I drive a lot for work, and then we take quite a number of road trips throughout the year, visiting Steph's family. When we've taken trips in the past, we have trips coming up where it's like we're driving long drives. It fits what that is. That being said, even if you do road tripping, for many of these vehicles, it's not that much more of a hassle to charge a standard range vehicle than a long range vehicle. It's just to get a sense of what we're talking about. It's really about price. Like, how much can you afford? What's in your budget right now? and whether it's worth the hassle. I think for a lot of these trips, it'll just be an extra, what is that? You gotta be kidding me. It'll be an extra like 2 charging stops. And so to get a sense, like for instance, with Tesla Model Y, we're gonna use a Model Y for instance, the standard range configuration is 47,740, and then your long range is just under $3,000 more at 50,000. $3,000 more for a long range vehicle. Maybe that makes sense to do that. If we go to the Mustang Mach-E, for instance, I think the base model with the standard range battery is like 49,940, because you can't get it on the Select, the base model, I think. But you can get it their premium model, right? You can add on, but that's another $7,000. So you're up to, if my math is right, about $56,000 starting here for if you want the extended range battery. And in terms of like what you get, standard range 72 kilowatt hours, target estimate of about 250, and then the extended range 91 kilowatt, usable 310. So about 60 miles more estimated. Now again, estimated is different from real world, but let's just use the numbers. 60 miles, $7,000 difference. If we go to Volkswagen, same kind of issue here. I don't think you can add the big battery to the standard. You have to get the go to the Pro model, it looks like, to get the big battery, 82 kilowatts. Same thing, 209 versus 275 here for the big battery, but a difference of, what is that, $5,000? 38 to 40, well, 39 to 44, yeah, $5,000 difference. So you can see, like, you're paying a few $1,000s more no matter which manufacturer. Is it worth it, right? And so what I did want to share also is going back to the road trip, because again, a lot of people default to road trips. When we drove to, I just want to pull this up. When we drove from New York City to Atlanta, Georgia, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to say we charged in Piedmont. So we had 5 charging stops from New York City, Atlanta, Georgia. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's just try this and see. Let me move my face over here. I don't know why they don't have the standard range, all-wheel drive, just base Model Y here on the trip planner. But let's go with the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, just because it gets presumably 272 miles per charge, and that's about the same. I think the Model Y standard range is, depending on what wheel configuration you get, 260, 270, like 280, 269 or something like that. All right, so we're gonna try the Model 3. Again, let's New York City, and we're gonna go to Atlanta, Georgia. And this is really to compare how many stops it's anticipated. I think generally speaking, you're probably gonna add 1 to 2 more stops to this thing anyway. One, we got Pedricktown, New Jersey. That looks like on the thruway. Madison, Virginia is 2. Lynchburg, Virginia is 3. Charlotte, North Carolina is 4. And then Fairplay, South Carolina is 5. So again, in actuality, with the long range Model 3, we did, how much was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is saying that we would be able to take the rear wheel drive Model 3 and just go to get from New York City to Atlanta, Georgia in 5 stops. I think realistically, you probably add 1, maybe 2 more stops in there, again, depending on passengers, temperature, so on and so forth. But it's just 1 or 2 more charges that would add maybe about 30 to 40 minutes to your trip. So again, if you're someone who's out there considering electric vehicle, I wouldn't default to, I just gotta get the longest range battery I can find, because there's a cost associated to that. Tesla, again, is about a 3,000 difference on the Model Y from the standard range to the long range. The Mustang Mach-E, so that's a $7,000 difference from the standard battery to the extended range. Volkswagen is a $5,000 difference. And if you're someone who won't be really needing all of that, then maybe it doesn't make sense. If your driving habits keep you, again, like 30 to 50 miles per day, like most people, any vehicle, including standard range of all of these models, would be more than sufficient. The real question you have to ask yourself is, how are you going to go about charging this vehicle? Because then if you don't have access to an outlet, that's when you really got to consider, where are you going to charge this thing? How are you going to do it? How often? It's definitely doable. I did it for almost 2 years. But fortunately for me, I had a supercharger about 10 minutes away from my office, and it was easy for me to incorporate into my lifestyle. Didn't really change much of anything other than I would eat lunch outside of my office once or twice a week to incorporate charging. But if you're someone who lives pretty far or works pretty far from the nearest charging station, then you may want to consider it. And then maybe those extra miles on a long range or extended range battery makes sense for you. So really, before you make any decision, I encourage you, think about your driving habits before making a decision about I need how many miles per charge, because the miles per charge won't have a big impact if it doesn't really match your driving habits. All right. Hopefully you found this informative. If you did, share your comments below, give it a thumbs up. And also, if you are considering a Tesla, be sure to use my referral code in the description below. If you're not aware, Tesla does have a pretty cool referral program. It's a credit-based system. So if you do end up buying a new Tesla using a referral code, you'll get some credits, and I'll also get credits as well. I want to disclose that, but those credits can be redeemed inside of the Tesla shop for all the stuff that they sell, accessories for the vehicle, clothing, whatever the case is. Or if you wanted to convert that into supercharging miles, hey, summer is here, and if you get a new Tesla, you might as well have some supercharging miles available so you don't have to pay for charging along your trip. All right, hopefully you enjoy this. Until next time, you take care, be well, bye for now.